Welcome to another lore dive here on the Taku channel. Every day, new lore. Most requested video is the one we're happening and the one that we do every single day. All right, here on Taku every single day. All right, so Elephants in Room. He's a guy that studies all these interesting questions. He's doing a lore dive on why do people hate the Jews. All right, so lock in, boys and girls. We have to figure out why the people hate the Jews.
Why have Jewish people faced so much hatred throughout history?
I'm ready. This is going to be diabolical, right? As a hated Jew myself, all right, I'm sure that I will have a lot of insight.
I mean, it's been a lot, and it's a long story. They were enslaved by the Egyptians in the first pages of the Bible.
True.
They were shunned by medieval Europe. One-third of all Jews living in the 1930s were murdered in the Holocaust.
True.
And even today, it doesn't take much to spark hatred towards Jews.
By the way, I mean, I guess this is not something I'm exactly like super proud about or anything, but the number one hate crimes against any ethnic group ever in the world is against Jews. In the United States right now, it's pretty insane that this is happening in the U.S. Right? The Jews are 2% of the population, and get over like 50% of hate crimes. So that's pretty insane.
Hey, I'm Ken LaCourte, and this is a big, uncomfortable question. I researched it pretty heavily.
What's uncomfortable about it? What do you mean?
And I'll do what I can to give you the best of what I found in the least biased way I can.
All right,
we'll look at the concept of Jewish distinction, which has been ingrained into Judaism for thousands of years.
Yeah, that is definitely a part of it. The fact that Jews, like, marry themselves and stay closed and together and stuff like that. That's definitely a thing.
A close look at how jealousy towards Jewish success and power has played a part.
That is also a thing. Because Jews are, intellectual in general. I mean, studying is like the number one part of Judaism. All right, like it's study, right, from Torah to science and all that. Yeah, and it's also an in-group. People do each other favors. That's also true. So yeah, no, there is an overrepresentation of Jews in high places of power. That's true.
As well as how true and not so true antisemitism charges affect the equation.
All right, here we go.
Well,
we got a mix over there. That's
the
true.
ongoing
Fair.
Palestinian conflict.
All right, yeah, that's also a thing. All right, but to be fair, I think that's almost an excuse. I'm not gonna lie.
But first, let's be clear. Jews are far from the only victims around.
True.
Racism, xenophobia, and bigotry are an ugly and ongoing part of human history. Across every era and place, you'll find people being persecuted for their ethnicity or their beliefs. We've seen the Cambodian genocide, the Rwandan genocide, Mao's cultural revolution, Soviet purgers, the Armenian genocide. It goes on and on. When times get bad, people often look for somebody to blame. Minorities, immigrants, and religious groups often become easy scapegoats.
True, but one major difference in general between Jews and a lot of these groups are Jews have been pretty consistently hated for the last 2,000 years everywhere. Right, it's pretty wild that here the Jews, all right, have remained stagnant at around 15. There are 15 million Jews in the world. And a lot of people think there's like bajillions of Jews, right? Even Joe Rogan. I can't show you the clip because Twitter is down. But a lot of people thought that Joe Rogan was like, are there like a billion Jews? Yeah, no, bro. There's like 15 million Jews in the world, and before the Holocaust, there were also 15 million Jews in the world because of the persecutions that keep happening. Jews have always remained a very, very small population.
Some evolutionary psychologists argue this whole us versus them idea is hardwired into our nature, a survival mechanism from our tribal past. I mean, early humans stayed alive by forming close-knit groups that often competed for resources with others. A stranger often meant violence, or even when they were friendly, exposure to unknown sicknesses that could destroy an entire tribe. But the hatred towards Jews has been uniquely intense. Despite being a tiny fraction of the world's population, Jews have faced expulsion, massacre, discrimination in virtually every part of the world they've lived. It's been stubbornly persistent across centuries and cultures. So what is it about Jews that has made them such a consistent target of hatred and suspicion? The answer is complex, but Jewish identity has always been deeply entwined with distinctiveness and separation.
True.
It goes all the way back to
He's right about that.
The Torah, the founding religious text of Judaism. Over centuries, religious commands to maintain a distinct identity shaped Jewish practice in profound ways. The ancient Israelites developed strict dietary laws, like prohibition on eating pork or shellfish.
I mean, that is what God said in the Bible, so.
They followed a unique calendar with holidays like Passover and Yom Kippur that set them apart from their neighbors. They
dates that are literally stated in the Bible. True.
Wore, and often still do, distinctive clothing that made them look different.
Yeah, bro, that's wild. True. Also true.
Different from those around them.
Yeah.
These practices created a strong sense of Jewish community and solidarity. In ancient times, this often brought them in conflict with the conquerors who
This dude's just jealous that the Hasidic Jews have drip.
demanded cultural conformity, from the Babylonians to the Romans. Jewish commitment to their faith in the face of persecution was seen as stubborn, and it planted the seeds for centuries of stereotyping, scapegoating, and conspiracy theories. But the story of anti-Semitism can't be told without talking about Christianity as well. I mean, after all, Christianity began as a Jewish sect, and Jesus himself was a Jew. His crucifixion story, told via the Gospels written decades later, depict Jewish religious leaders as the bad guys, accusing Jesus of blasphemy and conspiring with Roman authorities to have him executed. And over time, Christianity...
And, Christians were not very happy about this for, pretty understandable reasons.
Institutionalized this narrative of collective...
But again, also, it's like, I feel like a lot of the things are, like, I wonder if he's going to get to this, because he didn't say this in his layout. So Judaism is an ethnicity, and it's also a religion. So you'll have people that are ethnically Jewish that aren't religious in any way, all right? And anyone immediately gets called out when it's a Jew that did a thing, right? It's like the equivalent of saying, oh, well, Hitler was a Christian because he was technically baptized. No, Hitler was not a Christian. Hitler hated Christians, actually. So, even though he was technically baptized, I wouldn't say that, Christians did the Holocaust. But when it comes to Jews, since Jewishness is an ethnicity as well as a religion, you'll have like Jeffrey Epstein, who was ethnically Jewish, even though he wasn't religious at all. All Jews get thrown into that boat. And that's just pretty diabolical.
Guilt, positioning Christians as God's new chosen people and Jews as spiritual outcasts. As Christianity grew, Jews were cast as the antithesis to Christian virtues. And Christianity grew amazingly fast. I mean, there's about 165 Christians in the world for every Jew. But the values of Judaism led them to great successes in the world, and those successes also helped fuel distrust and hatred towards them. Throughout history, jealousy of rich and controlling Jews has been a thing. In medieval Europe, Jews were prohibited from owning land, joining trade guilds, and working in most professions. They were forced into fringe economic roles like money lending, which Christians were barred from pursuing.
Well, I mean, yeah. There's a reason why people didn't like that Jews were doing money lending, to be clear. But yeah, no, Jews weren't allowed to like go to colleges or study higher education or own land. And they were kind of segmented to be like, well, we're going to do this. And we're going to get rich off of this. And it did happen. And then obviously people were not very happy with that.
This occupational segregation was enforced by religious law and social customs. Over time, many Jews found success in finance, and they developed networks of credit and trade across Europe and the Mediterranean.
Damn, look at those noses, bro.
Some rose to prominent positions as court bankers and advisors to kings and nobles. And that made them targets, especially in bad times. When crops failed or markets collapsed, Jews were blamed, accused of exploitation or hoarding wealth. The Nazis took economic anti-Semitism to its most extreme and murderous conclusion. They portrayed Jews as parasites and exploiters, controlling banks and media as part of a conspiracy to subvert Germany. The final solution...
Wow, that sounds pretty familiar.
...was partly an attempt to eliminate this imagined Jewish stranglehold on the economy. This took on new forms in more recent years. The stereotype of the rich Jew was updated, and people made sweeping assumptions about Jews being lawyers or controlling Hollywood.
True! What do you mean assumptions? Jews are lawyers that control Hollywood. What are we talking about? Okay, all right.
That's where I have to be careful, not to feed into bad stereotypes, but also not to blindly assume that every one of them is evil and wrong.
Last week on Larry King Live, Marlon Brando made the shocking statement that Hollywood is, quote, run by Jews.
I mean... is he wrong?
In response, outraged Jewish organizations made it snow in New York in April.
Damn. No. Yeah, Disney hated the Jews. Yeah, Walt Disney absolutely hated the Jews. No, but the Jews founded Hollywood. Like, everyone's like Hollywood was run by Jews. Yeah, but Jews founded Hollywood because when Jews originally immigrated to the United States, they weren't allowed to have specific jobs or allowed into specific institutions. So they developed entertainment as an industry. Yes, Jews run Hollywood for the most part because it was largely created by Jews, and the reality is, a lot of Jews do favors for a lot of Jews. That is also true, which a lot of people don't like, and I get why people don't like that. But that is real. Like, for example, Superman, he was made up by Jews. Batman, invented by Jews.
The snow part was a joke, but the Hollywood entertainment industry was largely created by a group of ambitious Jewish immigrants from Eastern Europe. Words like control can be dangerously overused, but throughout the 50s, that studio system completely dominated the film industry. And to this day, Jewish Americans play a strong role in it.
True. So Jews push sex through the movie industry to destroy society. The woke ones do. It's a woke issue. Again, I'm making this distinction between ethnic Jews and religious Jews. Ethnically, Jews are just like any other group, all right? They're not necessarily tied to Jewish values. Woke Jews, unfortunately, are retarded. It's a woke issue, primarily from my perspective.
Have long placed a high value on education, literacy, and professional achievement. And many Jews have risen to the top of their chosen field.
Like, dude, that is so true.
Literacy and professional achievement.
Dude, I'm telling you, man, I was 3 years old when my parents told me, you're going to be a great doctor. I'm not even exaggerating. I was 3 years old and my parents are like, you are going to be a fantastic doctor, my son. My son, it's going to... Anyway, sorry to disappoint. I'm a blue retard on the internet now. Yeah, no, but that is true. That is absolutely true. The amount of studying I've done is unreal. All right. A lot of people don't know this. All right. I'm going to tell you something that's going to break your mind. Do you know what the average school day looks like in a Jewish private school? All right. Not even exaggerating. You get there at 7:30 for prayers. All right. You're there till 6 p.m. And then you go back at night from like 8 to 10. All right. Because you have to do all of your secular studies, your math, obviously math, languages, stuff like that. But you also have to do your religious studies. You have to study the Torah, the Bible, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. All right. It is unbelievable. And that is true, by the way.
And many Jews have risen to the top of their chosen...
They don't even teach black magic, though. That's crazy. I thought for sure I'd learn some Jew black magic, but I didn't get any of that.
...fields, thanks to a combination of ability and communal support. For a group that's about 2% of America, Jews have earned themselves an outsized role in a number of powerful fields.
Yeah.
But that's very different from the concept of Jewish globalists secretly controlling world events.
True. It's woke globalists that control world events. And in my opinion, Jews are probably overrepresented among them. Because, Jews, especially the woke guys, they are trying to get these positions of power. I'll be real. That is a fact. Like George Soros, that dude's Jewish. He's not religious in any way. He doesn't actually have Jewish values from my perspective at all. But yeah, no, he is a billionaire globalist.
And it also ties to another accusation that we hear a lot, the one of dual loyalty. It's the idea that Jews are more loyal to Israel or a global Jewish agenda than to their own countries. And it plays on...
By the way, a lot of people don't know this. This is sort of true. There is an alliance to global Jewish agenda among Jews. But that agenda is mostly like, let's try to prevent the Jews from getting exterminated. That is the number one goal in global Jewish agenda. Let's try not to have Jews get massacred around the world. That is basically it. A lot of people don't acknowledge that. It's not like when people think of Jewish agenda globally, it's like pushing woke shit everywhere. Religious Jews hate the woke shit. They do. Absolutely. They all detest it. And the base Jews, even the ones that aren't religious, the ones that just have conservative values, they also hate all that. The woke Jews, they love that because they're woke. But again, anyway.
Those ancient fears of Jews as a shadowy cabal with their own allegiances. It's also reinforced by the fact that up until the mid-20th centuries, most Jews weren't citizens of the countries where they lived. They were often seen as owing their allegiance to a global Jewish community rather than to any particular country. And a lot of American Jews feel a strong connection to Israel, and that influences their politics. True. Israel is both the center of the Jewish religion and has, for millions of Jews, been a safe refuge when other countries went bad for them. Pro-Israeli lobbying organizations like AIPAC give a lot of money to U.S. politicians. And the United States gives a lot of money.
Yeah, I'm not a huge fan of AIPAC.
In support to Israel.
Nope.
$4 billion a year in a typical year, and closer to $18 billion last year. And when some progressive politicians spoke out strongly against Israel, A lot of Jewish money helped defeat them in elections. Now, people should be able to debate about America's relationship with Israel without being...
Look, the way I see it, Israel is a foreign country. I don't want America to be giving money to foreign countries in general. I'm not an isolationist. However, I also don't want to be the world's piggy bank. So I don't want to give money to foreign countries, and that includes Israel. I don't want any of our money to go out when we need money to fix our problems in America. All right, that is my stance. Do I like Israel? Yeah. Do I think it's the Holy Land? Also, I do. I do. That said, it is a foreign country. It is not America, and I don't want to be funding it.
Branded anti-Semitic. And some Jewish leaders are quick, sometimes too quick, to play that card. Now, given the history of anti-Semitism...
Yeah, dude, I hate the anti-Semitism thing, because I think anti-Semitism has become like Black Lives Matter for a lot of people. You know, it's just scream, you know, it's like, oh, wait a second, did you criticize giving money to Israel? You must hate Jews. No, not necessarily. Nope. Yeah, but unfortunately, it just became like a really easy way to shut down conversations, and I hate it.
Many Jews are rightly sensitive to anything that sounds remotely anti-Jewish. The memory of the Holocaust is still raw, and the fear of resurgent anti-Semitism is a real thing. I mean, it was only 80 years ago that train tracks ended at death camps in Nazi Germany, where millions were murdered.
Look, the difference, though, is there is genuine anti-Semitism. I'll give you an example. Hassan Piker, largest leftist political streamer, saying, hey, we should all invade Israel, rape and murder as many Jews as we possibly can, and take them as captives, and Hamas is justified. All right? That's anti-Semitism. I'm just gonna say, Mr. Believe all women unless they're Jewish women. That is anti-Semitism. Now that said, criticizing Israel as a country, not wanting to give money to Israel, stuff like that is obviously not anti-Semitism. And the issue is, Jews keep pulling the Black Lives Matter shtick and just freaking out, you know, stuff like that, which is insane. 80 years ago is not raw. Well, I mean, I guess it is to some people. Look, my grandparents, thank God. My grandfather's 100 years old. He was a Holocaust survivor. And it's pretty raw to him, I guess. Again, I don't think that should change our policy in the world, but, you know, it is history.
I mean, there are still people alive today who were around back then. And it's not always easy to distinguish between honest disagreement and veiled bigotry. For instance, some say the term Israel lobby is an anti-Semitic dog whistle.
No, it's
suggesting a shadowy Jewish
influence
it's not. Over American politics.
It's not anti-Semitic, all right? People just don't want to prop up a foreign country, all right? Whether you support it or not. See, I think Israel is actually a really good ally to the United States in general. Giving us a ton of information and intelligence and stuff like that. I do think that they are a good ally in general. That said, it is a foreign country. And if you want to criticize a foreign country, you have every right to.
Others say it's an accurate description. The Jewish
but if you're just going to be like, actually, the Jews are trying to kill white people in general. No, that is not all the Jews. That's only the woke ones, and that's because they're woke, not because they're Jews.
Defamation League offers other examples. In their polling of what they call anti-Semitic questions, some are clearly that. But others...
Yeah, but the issue is the Anti-Defamation League is a radical left freaking bullshit website. I hate those guys.
Statement...
Right, Candace Owens saying that the Jews started slavery. Bro! Yeah, that's retarded.
Who stick together more than other Americans don't seem very anti-Semitic to me, and...
Jews do stick together more than other Americans. That's just a fact. I wouldn't say that's anti-Semitic. That's just reality.
Have a large degree of truth. There have even been recent attempts in America to outlaw boycotting Israel, or even supposedly anti-Semitic speech. Actions that completely violate America's concept of free speech. Things like that not only create a backlash, but they make it harder to confront genuine anti-Jewish hate. There can also be a confusing overlap between criticism of Jews in general versus the action of Israel. And no look at modern anti-Semitism would be complete without looking at the long-running conflict between Israel and the Palestinians.
Here we go.
The horrific October 7th attacks on Israel sparked a rare bit of sympathy for the country. But the resulting...
For like one day, Hassan Piker, largest leftist political streamer, said that Israel was doing a genocide one day after the October 7th massacre.
War in Gaza.
And by the way, there's been breaking news from the Doctors Without Borders. Doctors Without Borders finally admitted yesterday, by the way, for those of you that are unaware, yesterday they finally admitted that the reason why they weren't entering hospitals was because they were overrun by terrorists. Yep, it's out. Truth is out, actually, it seems. Wow, that's pretty diabolical. Yep. Here it is. Doctors Without Borders claims one of Gaza's largest hospitals being used by armed men to intimidate and arrest patients and potentially move weapons. Yep, that's right. There was no, it turns out there was no targeting of civilians. There was no targeting of hospitals, because they were literally terrorist strongholds. And there was no starvation. There was no famine. It's pretty diabolical.
Sparked hate that went far beyond protesting a war. People were harassed for speaking Hebrew in public.
True.
Holocaust memorials were defaced with swastikas and slurs. Jewish-owned businesses were vandalized, not for supporting a war, but just for being Jewish.
Dude, two Jewish Christians were murdered in Washington, D.C. All right, we got in Colorado, people were firebombed. A group of Jews were firebombed by, I think, Egyptian guy. All right, these retards in Bondi Beach in Australia gunned down 15 Jews on a beach. All right, in Manchester, 2 people were murdered going to synagogue. All right, this is insane.
Jewish.
Yeah, I would say that that's anti-Semitism, by the way. Right, not protesting Israel, but that shit's anti-Semitism, I would say.
College campuses in the United States and elsewhere often just denigrated into anti-Semitic environments. Under the guise of being anti-war, people who hated Jews had a field day. I mean, more Ukrainians have died at the hands of the Russians, who launched a totally unprovoked war against them, but you don't see anywhere near the level of vitriol against them and other countries.
It's because the Palestinian cause is an excuse for leftoids to destroy Western civilization. Because they are allying themselves with the barbarians that are trying to destroy Western values in general. And that's why Palestine became their Trojan horse. Because the Palestine conflict was a war that was started by the Palestinians where they lost miserably. And now they're doing their crash out in order to support the destruction of Western values in general. Also, calling the Russian invasion into Ukraine unprovoked is a little bit of an understatement. I would not go as far as to say unprovoked. All right, you could argue unacceptable, maybe. All right, immoral, yeah, for sure, but unprovoked.
Once again, Jews are treated differently. Now, this isn't a video to get into the history.
I mean, listen, man, no Jews, no news has been a long-standing joke among Jewish people because, and as tragic as it sounds, genocide in Nigeria against Christians, no one cares. Heartbreaking, but no one cares. Genocide in the Congo, no one cares. Genocide in Rwanda, no one cares. Genocide in Syria, no one cares. Against Druze, no one cares. Against Yazidis, no one cares. Against Owlites, no one cares. Against Armenians in Turkey, no one cares. All these things happened. All right, all these things happened. Right now in Iran, estimated 50 to 100,000 protesters massacred by the terrorist Islamic regime. No one cares. Not a word. Not a word. No one even talks about it. It's actually heartbreaking.
That conflict, but it does present a kind of a classic chicken and egg scenario. Do people dislike Israel because of their behavior towards Palestinians? Or
in my opinion, it's an excuse. I think that they use that as an excuse.
Is 2,000 years of anti-Jewish hate the real cause of that conflict? Or maybe
I think the hate in the West, I think it depends. For radical Islam, the hate is because it says in their holy books you have to kill all the Jews. I think that's a part of it, and you have to conquer the land that you were, because any land that was ever conquered by Islam is considered holy under Islamic law. So therefore, they are waging an infinite holy war to kill the Jews in Israel. All right, so that's, I think, where radical Islam comes from. Now, where I think the leftoids in the United States come from, I think they hate Western values. I think they hate God, quite frankly. I think they hate Western civilization. They use Palestine as an excuse to say, America bad.
This is often the case, a bit of both. One thing that I'm relatively...
Doesn't the Torah say that the Jews need to enslave Goy? No, it doesn't say... It doesn't even say that in the Talmud, which is like being quoted for that all the time. That is like a fabrication. Total misquote.
Certain of, though, is that Israel will actually keep winning the battles against its neighbor.
True! Because they're inbred. I'm sorry, I'm not allowed to say that.
No other reason than cultural differences and history. Because when you look into it, Arab armies virtually always lose wars against Western powers.
You mean that a throng of 80 IQ retards keep losing to people with an average IQ of 110. Probably a coincidence.
In fact, the last time an Arab regime won a major battle against the West was in 1187 AD. That was a long time ago. The reasons why are complicated, and cultural issues are at the heart of them.
Bro, he has a whole video why Arabs keep losing wars. All right, we have to do that maybe in the next one. Thanks for being here. Appreciate you guys. Big kisses to the people. Yeah, so ultimately, why do people hate Jews? I don't know. For lots of reasons, I guess, it turns out. Anywho, thanks for being here. Appreciate you guys. See you in the next one. This was today's lore. Bye. Like, subscribe, and this video was streamed live on kick.com/Nuxanor. See you there. Stay weird, man.